Welcome to the Joe Cohen Show. Join me as I share my experience with biohacking and invite top health experts to explore the latest technology, supplements, research, and resources for optimizing your body and brain. The fundamental sources of my issue were really, a lot of it really came down to the tryptophan, niacin, and methylfolate. And I can explain how that works exactly. My tryptophan, and again, there's certain genetic variants. There's IDO1 and IDO2, and you can have a more active, enzyme that converts more to kynurenine, and then you're going to have less indoles and less serotonin. And so you'll get all those problems as a result. Over time, you get more and more food sensitivities as a result of that. Another thing, so that's one thing. So you'll get more food sensitivities, less serotonin. That means also more mental health issues. And so I always knew that I was low on serotonin. And the way I fixed that was just by taking 5-HTP, which worked quite well. I think that also probably improved my gut reasonably, but it didn't fix the food sensitivities, because if I just create more serotonin, it doesn't create more indoles. And so the thing that I was always missing were these indoles. And so I actually didn't know that until recently, because tryptophan is high levels of all the foods that I eat. It's very high in meat, relatively. But you can still have a genetic pathway that just shunts more tryptophan into kynurenine. And so, the tryptophan pathway was one thing. The other thing with tryptophan is, if you are also deficient in niacin, your tryptophan will be used to create niacin. And I always felt my niacin was also relatively low. So if you don't have enough tryptophan and niacin, then you have a big problem with tryptophan, because not only is it getting shunted to serotonin, not only is it not getting shunted to serotonin or indoles, even more of it has to go through the kynurenine pathway and eventually to create niacin, essentially, and less of it into other pathways. So when you take in niacin, it actually does a few things. It activates a certain receptor, but it also allows for more tryptophan to be used in other ways, which is good. The other thing is, niacin also helps the conversion of tryptophan into 5-HTP and serotonin. And so that's very good for the brain as well. Niacin is beneficial to mood, but also methylfolate is important to create that serotonin. So when you're deficient on tryptophan, niacin, and methylfolate, you will be very, very low on serotonin, and that can cause a whole host of mental health issues. So I basically take care of that simply by taking methylfolate, making sure I have enough of that, making sure I get enough niacin, and then making sure I have enough tryptophan.
Some of the things that do get into the brain are things like theanine. I don't know if you take theanine.
I do.
Okay, yeah.
Theanine is in a supplement that I sell, Joe's Mood Daily. But anyway, yeah.
Oh, I did so much work on theanine. I think it's a great pairing with caffeine, because it makes caffeine more tolerable. So it helps focus with caffeine so you don't get jittery. But theanine by itself is like great for sleep. It's great for mood. It's working in so many different ways. It's like a really interesting molecule. And then the other thing that I have a pet peeve about is DHA, because once again, everyone's like, oh yeah, I'm going to take fish oil. It's going to help my brain. And it won't, because most fish oil is in a triglyceride form. It's not going to go into your brain at all. You need the phospholipid form to get into your brain. So
interesting.
Yeah, that's my main tip for people is don't bother just getting fish oil, get krill oil, which is full of phospholipids, and that will get into your brain and have brain benefits.
So something you interestingly mentioned with the flavonoids. And so I've done megadosing experiments on pretty much every supplement out there. And some of those obviously were the flavonoids. I haven't found almost any of the flavonoids to be really good at getting into the brain, in the sense that I didn't feel it in the brain at high dosages. So that includes quercetin, ficedin, luteolin, and probably some more. Actually, the EGCG got in. I did notice some cognitive effects from it. So
Okay, yeah,
the
that
yeah,
could be
I
because of
don't.
the blood-brain flow. Quercetin's an interesting one because this is one that might help you, but indirectly through its metabolites. And I say might because
Mm,
you have to have the right microbiota. So quercetin can get broken down by your microbiome into DOPAC and dihydroxyphenylacetic acid, which are basically like dopamine kind of feedback mechanism metabolites. So they actually trigger your dopamine system to make more dopamine because their metabolites basically said, hey, you lost a whole bunch of dopamine, make more. And so this is where quercetin could have an effect on your brain, improving dopamine, but you would need the right microbiota. So that's like a whole other big area that I'm interested in is how to make sure that your microbiome has the right bacteria in it to metabolize things in the right way so you get benefits.
I've taken the bioavailable, the phospho, the more bioavailable quercetin, but I have to do more experiments on that. What do you think of that? The more bioavailable forms of curcumin, quercetin. Sorry.
Quercetin, yeah, I mean, for sure that helps at least getting into the blood. So,
Right.
because I think most of the time quercetin just gets conjugated and then the liver just shunts it out and then that's that. So yeah, having a more kind of bioavailable quercetin with liposomes. And I'm seeing that more and more. I go to these trade shows and I see that everyone's putting liposomal, flavonoids into their, yeah, whatever supplements. And I would love to see more of the science showing that this is actually going to be more bioavailable rather than just kind of saying like we think it will work. So that is one of those pet peeves of mine of like show me the data. I mean, I will say that all the data on like the berries, the blueberries showing brain effects. There's this big study that just came out on cocoa polyphenols helping with brain function and executive function. Like those make me feel like, yeah, like there is something going on. But once again, I just feel like it's probably a blood brain kind of, like just literally more blood to your brain, like less kind of like difficulty in getting nutrients to your brain. Like that's really where it makes the difference. And I would say a lot of flavonoids become interchangeable to me. So, I mean, I eat breakfast every day, like a big, huge bowl of berries because I believe very strongly in like tons of green tea and all that. But I'm really thinking about it is like it's all interchangeable. Some of the flavonoids that I do think are very special are some of the catechins. So those are special. Apigenin, I think, is very special. Oh, and then like moving away from flavonoids, I think isoflavones are underappreciated. So those get into the brain, and I think those can be very good for brain health as well.
I think a lot of these people that make the supplements, how many people that make curcumin supplements are aware it's a powerful iron chelator? I bet not a lot of them even know that. So I really want to try to help educate people about how these things work because especially nowadays, what's a drug by definition? Anything that alters physiology. So by definition, these supplements are drugs, let alone nowadays. You have all, the dihydroberberine, dihydroquercetin. You have all these modified forms of natural supplements that are 3,000% higher absorption rate. At what where's the threshold here when we stop thinking that as like an inert, low key, mildly effective supplement and like a drug? You know what I mean? By definition, they're the same, but where do you draw that line? How much do you boost up what nature intended us to have before it's not considered a natural supplement? And the more concentrated these things get, the higher the chance for potential side effects and risks. So I really want to try to educate not just regular people, but also the practitioners to know these things. I think it's absolutely crazy that there's no training. I think anybody should be able to go into Vitamin Shop or wherever and order whatever supplement they want. I don't think that should be restricted. But I am starting to think now, if you are a health professional giving your expert opinion on what supplements someone should take, I think you should have to take some sort of certification course. Doesn't have to be, a huge in-depth thing, but even everyone rips on conventional medicine doctors. How, what do they get? Like 8 hours or so of nutrition experience, training in the whole 4 years of medical school. Like, why can't someone get 8 hours of supplement training before they're allowed to use that in their practice? I'm starting to call myself a holistic pharmacologist. I haven't really seen anyone else, go to the holistic space with this type of education, because I see a lot of people too on supplements that one mechanism may serve them well, the other mechanism may not. I've taken several female clients off of curcumin supplements because their hair's falling out. They're taking that, they're taking rutin, they're taking quercetin, all these polyphenols that chelate iron out of the body.
Right.
And they're doing these iron infusions, paying all this money, and these practitioners don't know what's going on. And I'm like, of course, nowadays they always have the crazy mumbo jumbo triple strength liposomal forms of everything nowadays. So you're not only getting, yes, you're getting much more anti-inflammatory effects. You're also going to get more iron chelation effects. You're also going to get more blockage of monoamine oxidase. So if other mechanisms aren't serving them well, I may need to find something that can help with inflammation that won't also be affecting the iron status. So that's something I'm very, very vocal about, and always try to cross reference, because a lot of people come to me saying they're so sensitive to supplements, because there's a lot of these. How many times have you seen on a curcumin bottle lowers iron? It's always antioxidant support, brain health, gut health, anti-inflammatory. And the same thing goes for a lot of other supplements as well, like quercetin, great for histamine, um, great for inflammation, but it's also a very potent MAO and COMT inhibitor that with like a 10-hour half-life. So people that have been anxious, can't sleep, they're on high dose of dihydroquercetin, and I'm like, we need to find something that helps with your histamine that is an issue for you, that won't also aggravate that adrenaline sensitivity that you have genetically.
Let's talk about the jet lag story. How do you get rid of jet lag for people?
So I'll try to do the real short version of this, but we were working with, I was trying to solve a problem for the Navy SEAL community. Learned that based on research the Navy had done, that when you come up from being submerged scuba diving and you come to the surface, so when you go from higher pressure to lower pressure, you can actually get an inflammatory response due to that. And fast forward to working with clients who were, flying to Asia from the US to close business deals, and like they'd land and the other side would want to negotiate at 6 a.m., 7 a.m. the next morning. And they're like, Andrew, we're getting killed here. Like, we don't sleep. And they're using jet lag as a negotiating tool. And so basically, long story short, we realized that this high pressure to low pressure inflammatory response was present when you fly. So when you take off, you go from higher pressure at sea level up to 5 to 8,000 foot relative altitude pressure in the plane, and people are getting an inflammatory response. It is a huge reason why you can't shift your circadian rhythm quickly. And so what we figured out how to do
Interesting.
was we used supplements at specific timing and at specific intervals to mitigate this inflammatory response, tamp it down, and then to give you more, use the anti-inflammatory effects to give you more energy when you haven't had enough sleep, and then use all the tools, light, supplements, mealtime, exact quantities of napping during the trip to rapidly shift your circadian rhythm. And we're now seeing 90 to 95% of people can go to Europe, Asia, Africa, Australia, and sleep well their first night. So
Interesting. Okay. Well, I want to talk about that a little more, because I'm assuming that there's a whole program here, but I find going from, let's say, uh, going like sleeping later is not a problem. That's easier to shift. So if I go from Europe to the US, right? There's so let's say if I'm in the US, then I could just stay up later and that
right.
shifts it automatically. The bigger problem is going back. Right. Then you're up till like 6 in the morning and you want to go to sleep earlier. So I guess what I do is, I obviously try to get the light. I try to do, there's a bunch of hacks there. And then also I'm relying more on melatonin. What do you do on the way back? Well, besides, now you're also saying reduce inflammation on the flight. Okay. Right.
Yep.
Is that
So you have
overall?
to
Okay.
reduce inflammation. You need to preload the body before you get on the flight, and then you're basically using, we have an algorithm that customizes it, but you're using doses of flavanols and ascorbic acid and high dose omega-3 fatty acids. So you're using these at different intervals and different timing based on your trip. And then what are we doing? We go over. So I'm going to give you less than a full night's sleep going over. So if you're going to Europe from the US, you're going to get 3 to 4.5 hours of sleep on the night over. But we're going to mitigate the negative effects of not having enough sleep. And then we're going to use that to also we're going to use insulin signaling and meal timing and light to lock your circadian rhythm in place. So I'm going to give you less sleep. So I'm going to have you typically sleep, depends on your flight timing, obviously, but let's say 4.5 hours. So you're going to wake up in the morning at your destination, and then we're going to lock your circadian rhythm in. And then by the time you get that night, you're going to be tired, and we're going to use melatonin, not really to put you to sleep, but as a timing signal to your brain. So the original research on melatonin shows that it's like they call it a Zeitgeber, a timing signal. And so we may use a dose in the afternoon, a dose kind of closer to bed, and as a kind of telling your brain, it's going to be time to go to bed soon. And then that plus the blue light glasses to filter out blue light, we can usually land somebody to sleep well that night.
So you're saying the first night is the most critical, where you do like an intentional. I mean, they're waking up in the morning at a normal time, even if they're going to sleep at 6 in the morning or whatever, right? And
Yeah,
and
it depends on
then
your
they're going to
flights.
be so tired.
Going to
Yeah,
Europe, you usually sleep on the flight, right?
right.
So
And
yeah,
then
it
they're going to be
depends on the
so
flight.
tired they can go to sleep earlier.
But I gotta make it so you don't feel so bad the first day that you don't take a nap. So there's
So what are
a
some of the
real
things you do
balance.
for that?
So smaller, more frequent meals are super helpful. Light exposure, high dose omega-3 fatty acids at high frequency. I've been shown in military studies to give people more alertness throughout when you've been sleep deprived, and in addition, some of the other anti-inflammatory stuff. So those are kind of the big things. Plus, we'll use caffeine at specific times and insulin signaling to kind of wake up or reset the circadian clocks in your gut, liver, etc. We've made a product called FlyKit that has all those things. You download the app, put in your flights and information, and we give you a kit with all the supplements. And then it does all the timing, gives you reminders when to do everything. So we want to make it life easy for you.
Fasting period and fasting zone and what happens to the body and the cells. And you brought me in today to a little bit talk about this breakthrough technology, which is, okay, who's going to fast on water for 5 days to get 2-3 days of autophagy? Very difficult. And this is where the National Institute of Health in the US sponsored us with tens of millions of dollars to create the fasting mimicking diet or the fasting mimicking nutrition. The essence is, can people still eat while the cells stay in fasting mode? And we took 12 to 15 years to unlock this oxymoron of fasting with food. We call it physiological fast. Obviously, when you fast, you're not eating. But with this new technology, the fasting mimicking diet, and we call the main product Prolon. There's a box here behind me. It's a 5-day food that you can buy and consume, and your body stays in a fasting mode. We started studying how the cell senses food. What are the nutrient sensing pathways? There's 3 main pathways that tell the cell there's enough food: the PKA, the TOR, and the RAS pathways. A lot of those are being triggered by the NMN, the NAD, the repalogs, all the aging and longevity factors, because these are the pathways that tell the cell, hey, grow. When you biologically grow, you're getting older. If you tell the cell not to grow and to fast, so by nutrition is fasting, by pills is repalogs and MNNs and NADs, etc., then you're inducing this anti-aging effect, the cellular rejuvenation effect. And so we start studying how much nutrients you should give each one of these pathways to be convinced, right, that, oh, there's enough food, so go off fasting, or how to go under the threshold of detection of these pathways. And we developed a full nutritional plan for 5 days that we ship to you, because it's a very delicate formulation, all plant-based, healthy ingredients, plant-based source of proteins, healthy carbs, meaning complex carbs, high in mid-chain fatty acids, and you consume it over 5 days, and it's telling the cell that it's nourishing the body, but at the cellular level, the nutrient sensing pathways are not overly triggered, and therefore the cells are staying in a fasting mode. Now,
Okay, let's kind of break this up a little bit. How many calories are there in this prolong?
so in Prolon, there are 5 days. Day one is 1,100 calories, and then every other day is 800 calories. So you're not fasting by deprivation, you're fasting by nourishment. And
Okay.
that's the oxymoron. Today, we
Okay.
have over 200 patents on this formulation. It's the only, something important to mention is the only intervention today that has a patent on enhancing longevity and health span, the healthy part of life. And we were awarded this patent because of the preclinical and the clinical trials trying to show the metabolic improvements and the cellular rejuvenation impacts of the box.
Okay, so what are some of the what is, let's say, the clinical evidence that what are the benefits in, let's say, clinical trials? This product itself was used in clinical trials?
Yeah, and now we're completing the 32nd clinical trials. So it has 32 clinical trials already completed, or
This
18,
product has 32 clinical trials.
yeah, 18 fully completed and 14 are ongoing now. We just started our 32nd clinical trials. And
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 where did
as
you
I
get the
mentioned,
funding for all these clinical trials? From the government?
that's what I mentioned. So it's a combination of is our sourcing. There's over $100 million going into the clinical trials. The NIH and European governments have put over $36 million. The universities that we partner with, we have 18 universities that are conducting the clinical trials with us. They put some of their money. I mentioned USC. USC has the only longevity institute in the world, and they invested a lot into this.
Okay.
Stanford, University of Miami, University of Indiana. And we put our own money as a company from the revenues that we generate.
Okay. Oh, so you're saying any revenue you generate is going back into the research?
Not any revenue, but some of the revenues, not any revenue. We do it because we look at ourselves as a Nutritech company, right? People trust mainly randomized clinical trials, and FDA trusts the pharma and the biotech because there's proof there, right? When it comes to supplements and nutrition, it's a chaos out there. Everyone has a theory, and we decided to be the first, if you want, biotech of food. They call us a Nutritech, and we
Right.
do mice trials and then we do human trials before we put any claim in the market.
So how do you again? I'm kind of just we'll dive into all the science aspects, just in terms of the business aspect. If you're publishing, like you're publishing the studies, not if you mentioned you're publishing the studies. How do you protect against somebody just like doing the same thing? That's kind of the big issue in nutrition, where
Yeah,
you can say you do a clinical trial on a supplement, and it doesn't stop someone else from creating the same supplement and
yeah,
using your clinical trial.
yeah. Well, they can, in supplements, they copy the formulation and the use of your clinical trial, but you don't have patents in supplements because there's very rare innovation in supplements. I don't know if you can mention supplements with patents. They can have a
What do you have the
trademark.
patent on? It's very hard to patent food. You can't
Yeah,
really. What do you patent? What did you patent in the food?
this is why it had to be an oxymoron. It's fasting with food. This is what the innovation is. So we have the patent. Our patents covered three parts. There's a formulation, which basically nourishes your body while keeping it in a fasting mode. Number two, the methods of intervention, all the ingredients. So there's no new chemical entity. There's no new biological entity. It's the formulation, the method of administration, the 5 days, and every day the ingredients. And then there's the claim that we patented. You and I were chatting before. We have claims on longevity, but we have claims on diabetes, on cancer, on Alzheimer's, and autoimmune diseases. We ventured with the same formulation. We ventured on longevity and how to keep people healthy, lose the weight, and optimize metabolic, performance and cellular rejuvenation. But also, if you have a health condition, and I don't know, I know the audience probably understand fasting to a certain extent, but just a refresher: when you fast, every cell is in trouble, right? Every cell needs calories. And then when the cells are in trouble, they rejuvenate, they fix. Now, let's compare the body to a company, right? So if the body is fasting, is like a company with no revenue. And if with the CEO having no revenue is going to restructure the company to survive. It's like, how can I cut some of the travel budget? How can I fix this, fix that? And the body does the same thing. If you're healthy, the body is optimizing your performance and your health. So that's a longevity. But if you have a disease, if that CEO knows that marketing, I don't have no revenue because marketing is not performing, he's going to start fixing marketing first, right? So if you have diabetes, we see the body going after to correct the performance of the pancreas and to decrease insulin resistance. If you have cancer, same thing. If sales is going wrong, the CEO is going to fix sales first. And if you have cancer, we see the body rejuvenating immune cells to increase attacking the cancer. The body starves the cancer so it doesn't grow and protects the normal cells of the body from chemotherapy and immune therapy. So every time you put the body into the crisis of fasting, it's looking to optimize everything ongoing. We tried it on cancer, diabetes, Alzheimer's, autoimmune with our fasting mimicking Nutri technology. And some of the trials are published. Since we mentioned prolong, I don't want to claim yet on cancer and diabetes, etc. But on June 15, we're launching for the first time ever in the US, a diabetes remission and regression program based on the fasting mimicking diet. We've shown that we're 800% better chance of taking you off meds than the current medication that you have alone.
67% of listeners aren't subscribed to the show, so please don't forget to show your support by hitting the subscribe button now. You'll not only be supporting the show, but also investing in yourself and your health journey, all while helping to keep us ad-free.